Ah. All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Free. I'm Ryan, and I'm the pastor here. It's good to be with y'all on another Saturday night. And I know the same thing happened this week that happened last week. Y'all, we don't have parking outside. I know there's some late comers coming in. I'm glad y'all are here. Van Morrison rolled into town tonight, apparently. He didn't give me a heads up either, just like Zach Brown. I don't know what's up with these people. Hey, I'm glad you all are here with us online. Welcome to Free. This is a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. And what we do here is break the silence of addiction and create space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. So wherever you're with us tonight, from whichever state you're in, wherever you are, coast to coast, in your sober living house or free circle or wherever you gather in living rooms, kitchens, we're just glad to be with you on this Saturday night. So welcome, welcome, welcome. A few things you might want to know about. First, we have the panel discussion coming up this Wednesday night. There's the flyer, the truth about the opioid crisis and how you can make a difference. Dr. Lacey will be here. Josh Geppel will be here, and Josh is in the house tonight as our guest storyteller, so you're going to hear from him twice this week. How's that? Welcome, Josh. I'm glad you're here. And Casey will be here, Casey Lucarelli. This is going to be a good panel discussion, and good's not the right word for it. This conversation that we're going to have is so needed in the community. As you all know, I've said it for several weeks, 93,000 deaths, overdose deaths here in the U.S. In 2020. We have an epidemic on our hands. We are losing people. It's why this community exists. It's one of the reasons why this community exists. This is a conversation the community needs to have. So I hope you plan on being here. This event will also be live streamed. That's this Wednesday, 7 p.m. I hope you're here. It's going to be good. Also, we are going to do, now here's the deal, y'all. We have about 5 weeks left here. Yeah, time is coming to an end. We received our 60-day notice a couple of weeks ago. Was not surprising. We expected this. We didn't know exactly when, but we have 2 spaces we are looking at. I wanted to give more firm details tonight, but I need to wait one more week, I hope. But this is really exciting stuff coming down the pipes. Like, things happen in crisis mode, and people start reaching out to you when they know you're in a bit of crisis. So good things are happening. I can't wait to share more with you next week. And I've said it all along, God's got us. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know where we're going to end up, but I truly believe God's got us. And I know you all have been praying that too, that wherever we end up, God is good, and we believe that. And so thank you for your prayers. I will say more next week, I hope. Now, on October 30th, we're going to have a baptism service here. Some of y'all have been part of this. We do baptisms in the custom-built wagon, which is just to my left. Behind y'all over here, we fill it with water, do baptisms. If you are interested in baptism, please come and talk to me. Let me know you're interested. We're going to do a little what is baptism class. I don't know if I'd call it a class, meeting, gathering, whatever we want to call it, October 14th here from 6:30 to 7:30. If you're interested, if you want to know more about why we do baptism, it's a sign of new life. It's a sign of the grace that's always been with you from the very beginning. If you want to know more about why we do that here, please talk to me. If you're interested in getting baptized, please talk to me, and I will fill you in, and we'll have all kinds of fun. By the way, don't think you have to do this. It doesn't get you any more in with God. It doesn't get you any more in this community. It's a symbol, and we know something about symbols, don't we? New life. So talk to me. We'll talk more about it. What else do we have on the... do we have anything else for announcements other than Nate's video? All right, y'all. Nate was in the house not long ago, and Nate said a few words in front of the camera, and I want y'all to hear what Nate says. This is all kinds of hopeful. Check it out.
Hello there. I am Nate, and I am a recovering alcoholic. My sobriety date is July 4th, 2017. Life before sobriety was a battle. I knew that I had an addiction, but I wasn't going to admit it to myself because that would be weakness and I wouldn't be perfect. I had this life where I would try to be perfect with everything I did, whether it was martial arts or school or the way my hair was or how I dressed, everything, so that I could try to find acceptance from people and to fill those voids that I had inside, but nothing could fill those voids. It was all superficial. And so it was a very lonely, lonely time because nobody really knew me. It was just, who could I reflect onto you for that particular moment in time? And I would use drinking as kind of my spinach. It gave me courage. I didn't feel ugly. I didn't feel like I was not funny. It just enabled me to be able to relax around groups because I just was socially awkward. And it led me down a hole that you would never want to experience. Going through the steps allowed me to finally identify my happiness. And it gave me peace inside that I've never been able to get anywhere in my life. So I was sitting, in your shoes at home. It was the 4th of July, and my girls were camping with their mom and whoever she was dating. And I've never felt more alone in my life. I didn't think there was hope. The only thing I wanted back was my girls, and that was it. I had no idea the blessings that were going to come by coming to this community, going through the work, doing the steps, working with my higher power, what I choose to call God. It gave me peace inside. It gave me harmony inside. That disbelief of thinking this is never going to get better, there's no way, and the only light that's coming at me is that train staring at me, it's gone. When you get to the end of this road, you are going to find a peace and beauty that you never thought even possible. And it sounds like a bunch of words, right? You're sitting there, there's no way. Nobody could feel this low. Nobody could feel this broken or this hollow inside. But I guarantee you, that was me. I could never have felt more alone, sitting in that house by myself with nothing in that house for over a year. There wasn't an inkling that anything could ever be positive or outgoing in my life. And today I sit here looking at you, telling you, if you come in here, the blessings that you will receive, you can't even dream of them. You'll sell yourself short by saying, I want this in my life. Because if I got what I wanted back in my life, I would have my girls. That's it. I wouldn't have the beautiful home I built. I do have my girls. I wouldn't have the inner peace. I wouldn't have this community. I wouldn't have the freedom to be expanding in my education. None of that was even on the radar. So when you come here, come with no expectations. Just bring yourself and let the miracles happen to you.
Not a bad word. Just bring yourself and let the miracles happen to you. Thank you, Nate. Is Nate in here tonight? No, I don't see Nate. Thank you, Nate, if you're watching tonight. We appreciate you, brother. Glad you're part of this community. Listen, the way we get started here at Free is by celebrating together. We lift up the good stuff, the new stuff in life, the new babies, new sobriety anniversaries, birthdays, whatever the new thing is you're celebrating. We believe that God joins with us in the celebrations. We take this stuff seriously. We do not ignore the hard stuff or the bad stuff. The heartaches is what we call them, but we do save them for the end. We start with celebrating because y'all know in this community, sometimes we can get bogged down with the hard stuff. So we start with gratitude and we remember what we do have. So let's start there. Take 3 minutes if y'all are online, and you can put your the good stuff, the new thing happening. You can put it in the comments. That might seem awkward and a bit creepy, but we do it every single week together. It's how we celebrate together. If you're in person, we'll take 3 minutes and do our own thing here in the house. So take 3, and we'll be right back.
Hello world, wake me up to another good morning, time to go. Got that smile upon my face, 'cause there's excitement in the chase, this I know. Yeah, I'm going for the ride and find myself, I am alive, and I soar. Still I run towards the wind and let the challenge draw me in, 'cause I want more. Oh, we are all looking for adventure. 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 are all looking for adventure. We 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 are all looking for And I'm living free, living free, living free, and I was meant to be. Living free, living free, living free, and I was meant to be. I'm living free, living free, living.
Tammy's going to join me up here.
Running into people on my way up.
Oh, my word. It's good to have you here. Now, Tammy's been gone all day. We have not seen each other yet today. She was at a recovery. What was it?
Recovery rally
A
for
re-
MBART,
re-
PCA.
Yeah. Is your mic on?
I think so.
I think it is.
Check, check.
And she was speaking on the stage. Were you nervous?
I was shaky. Yeah. Yeah, I was shaking.
But you did it.
I did it. I'm tired. I'm drinking white coffee, so.
So am I.
What
So
movie
am
do you
I.
want to watch tonight?
We ain't sleeping tonight. Y'all can text us at 3 a.m. We're going to be all ears. And tomorrow's going to be awful. All right. Let's celebrate with people, shall we?
Gosh. Ooh, could I say first, the Rainwaters, they usually sit over there. They had their
Yes.
baby. Yeah. Little baby girl.
Jeremy and Lindsay,
Peyton.
congratulations. Little Peyton was born last night, I think, at 7:22 p.m.
I love it. The community's like, yep,
Yep,
that's what it was. They know.
We've been following y'all. You can't get away from us. Okay, congratulations, y'all. Let's start with, you want to read it first?
Sure. Hey, Amy, it's good to see you. She says, I'm celebrating new beginnings and a fresh start, learning from my mistakes and healing. It is so good to see you, and thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, Amy, glad you're here and part of this community. We'll celebrate with you. Larry E. Burns II says, and Larry, I don't think we've met before, but if we have met, if we haven't met, I'm glad you're here. Grateful for 150 days sober, connecting with family and new friends, finding a deeper scene of the Lord's power. Larry, congratulations,
Awesome,
brother. We
Larry.
will celebrate that with you, dude. Glad you're here. Glad you're part of this community.
Hey, Jen, she says, celebrating realizing that I am in a space in my life in sobriety, that it's okay to take a step back and breathe. Christy and I are taking a tiny step back from rescue to take time for us and get caught up on some things. Sobriety gives me the courage to take care of myself, and it's okay.
Absolutely. What a good
Yeah.
word, Jen. Let's
Yes.
celebrate that with Jen. Mabel. Am I saying that right? Mabel?
Mabel?
You can correct us if I'm wrong. My wife is probably right. She's celebrating join a family group, counseling group, and make me feel that my pain,
Makes me
like some others' pain, but we are in the group together for the same cause. I think I get the gist of what you're saying, that you are finding yourself, that your pain isn't going to waste, and you are not alone. So we're going to celebrate
There
that
you
with
go.
you.
I love it.
Glad you're here. Glad you chimed in tonight.
Yeah. Ooh, there's Sergeant Major.
Sergeant Major.
Hey, Tom. Thankful for my continued emotional sobriety. Love you, Pastor Ryan.
Love you too, Tom Efton. You're a good man. He's a hoo-ah. He's a good man.
Can I say, too, that you came up in conversation in our house this week, Tom?
He did?
Yeah.
You
He
did.
did. Yeah.
Say more.
And I was saying how grateful I was for you because you sit down with Ryan and you offer him hope and healing, and
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for you, Tom. So
Yeah.
thanks for being here.
You're a good dude. Love you, brother. Glad you're here. Let's do one more. Is it my turn or yours? Me. Pamela says National Daughters Day. Yes, today's National Daughters Day. When you look with eyes of gratitude, everything will seem like a miracle. God's greatest gift to me is being her mom. So grateful he chose me. That's
Love it.
beautiful. Let's celebrate that. And all you daughters out there. All right, thank you, Tam. Thank you for joining me up here. It's always good to have you up here with us in this community. Um, okay, y'all, we are in this third week of this series called Faith After Doubt. We built this series on Brian McLaren's new book called Faith After Doubt. Take a look. Because you're growing. That's how we're approaching doubt tonight. So it was a couple of weeks ago. We were in the book study on the book, Faith After Doubt, that we're doing on Wednesday nights. And someone brought up some of their doubts, and it hinged on this question of, what do you do with Jeffrey Dahmer? Like a mass serial killer. What about him? Is he created in God's image? And if so, like, where was God in that? And you could push it even further. You could say, well, what about Hitler? What about the Nazis? I mean, was this God's will that this would happen? And if God is so all-powerful and all-loving and all-knowing, why'd God let this happen? Why didn't God intervene? Why didn't God step in? Why didn't God stop this? Is there even a God? And then you could even get more questions that come up like, well, maybe the whole God concept is just opiate for the masses. And maybe God is distant or uninvolved. Or maybe you look at your own life and you say, well, maybe I've done too much. Maybe I've gone too far that God isn't interested in me. Or you say, man, there's just so much that's happened in my life or in the world that I just can't understand. And maybe you have said to yourself, I'm just not cut out for this faith stuff. And maybe you're here tonight on the outside, things appear to be just fine, but on the inside, you are the most lonely person in the room. Or maybe some of your doubt stems from an entirely different place. Maybe you have just been so burned by religion. Like you've heard too many groups claim that God's love is for all people and God loves everyone, but then they're busy being homophobic and they're busy creating committees to tell you exactly who's in and who's out, and you are just so tired and weary and exhausted of it all. And maybe even being it free, it's a last chance for you. It's a last chance, and even being here, you come in with a bit of apprehension, some suspicion, and that's okay. And does it ever feel like the more questions that you ask, the more doubt you engage, the more alone that you feel, the more stuck you feel, the less you feel like you belong? So there was an activist and theologian, and interestingly enough, he did much of his work during the time of the rise of the Nazi regime. His name was Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Yeah, some of you know him. Good stuff. Read everything he wrote. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was worried that his concern was that the Christian understanding of God had become a theological crutch. And he described this understanding of God as this phrase. We'll throw it on the screen for you. The Deus ex machina. Say that Latin phrase with me. Deus ex machina. Yeah, you all can practice that one later. It's a good one, though. Don't forget this one. Remember this one. It literally means God out of the machine. Now, this was a common technique in ancient Greece that they would use in plays. And there would be a machine at the side of the stage. I gave a hint to this last week. There was a machine at the side of the stage, and the machine would drop in a character, a person, and this person in the play, in the middle of the plot, would represent the supernatural being, which was all fine and good. But Bonhoeffer tells us that over time, this process of the Deus Ex Machina, it got a really bad name because it was beginning to be used by these second-rate playwrights. They would use it in the most sloppy ways. So the plot would get stuck. How do you move the plot forward? Well, you drop in the God figure to fix things. Anytime things were broken, the Deus Ex Machina could drop in. The God out of the machine could fix everything. This God could relieve all the tension. If this God needed to kill off some of the bad guys to keep the plot moving forward, well, that's exactly what could happen. And Bonhoeffer said the church has become exactly that. That we beg for this God to be dropped into the center stage when we experience doubt and questions or tensions or tragedy. And when this God doesn't appear, we cry out, failure. God's not real. The God stuff doesn't work. God doesn't care. And maybe you're like, yeah, that's what it feels like. Yeah, see, because when it comes to my life, when it comes to the play, I've been doing all the right things. I go to church. I'm connected to people. I'm working my program of recovery. But when it comes to the machine on the side of the stage, it's like it's broken. And now you have more questions, more doubts. And it's not because you're rebellious or resistant, but maybe it's because you're actually growing. And maybe God is way bigger and better than some Deus Ex Machina. Are you with me? So here's what I want to do. I want to look at 3 stories with you. These are very short, brief stories. They're found in Luke's Gospel, chapter 15. These are actually parables. Jesus would tell these short stories, and they were called parables. And parables always, when Jesus would tell these stories, they always told us something about who God is. And so Luke comes along and arranges these stories in a very particular way, puts them all together so that they all connect. And it's a story about a lost sheep, a lost coin, and a lost son. Now, before Jesus launches into these stories, he gives us 2 lines. The text gives us 2 lines that set up these stories for us, and we have to understand these 2 lines before we engage the stories. Are you with me? Here's how Luke chapter 15 begins. Check it out, just 2 lines, 2 sentences. All the tax collectors and sinners were gathering around Jesus to listen to him. The Pharisees and legal experts were grumbling, saying, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Now, do you ever read through the Gospels and think, why is Jesus always so hungry? Jesus, homeboy was always eating with people. Always eating with people. And you have to understand, this was such a revolutionary political act. Because there was a religious establishment, the religious leaders of the day were telling people, they were teaching who's clean and who's unclean, who's pure and who's impure, who's in with the God stuff and who's not really in with the God stuff. And these people, it's also important to understand, they had been conquered by one military superpower after another. And they were like, yo, God, why is this happening? Because, see, they believed that their God was more powerful and bigger and better than all the other gods. And they're saying, God, why do we keep getting conquered? Why do we keep getting oppressed by a people who don't care about you? By a people who don't know you? You're supposed to be bigger than that. God, where are you? That was their primary question. Where are you? And how did the religious establishment, those in power, how did they respond when these kinds of questions were asked? Well, here's why these bad things are happening to you. Because there's sinners in your midst, and you guys aren't following God's instructions. You're not following the religious rules. You're not obeying the laws. That's why these bad things are happening to you. It's their fault. It's their fault. It's the sinner's fault. Make sense today? How many scapegoats have we created today? It's their fault. That's why God's against us. That's why God's not for you, because it's their fault. Those sinners, those people. That's why the economy's not working, because of them. How many scapegoats have we created in today's society? Jesus was eating with sinners, the people who were most kicked out, the people who were most marginalized, the people who the religious leaders said, you're not in with God. You can't be in with God. Do you see how revolutionary it was? Because Jesus was essentially saying to them and saying to everyone overhearing, they're good. No, they're good. They're not the problem. You're good. So here's the first story. Story about a lost sheep. Now keep in mind, there would be some professions in the first century world where the religious leaders would have nothing to do with, and handling sheep would be one of them. Here's how Jesus starts the story. Talk about pissing people off. Suppose someone among you had 100 sheep, saying this to the religious leaders, and lost one of them. Wouldn't he leave the other 99 in the pasture and search for the one that was lost until he finds it? And when he finds it, he is thrilled and places it on his shoulders. When he arrives home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying to them, "Celebrate with me because I found my lost sheep." A pretty simple story, right? The sheep is lost. And what happens when a sheep is lost? Apparently, after doing some research, they just kind of stand there. When they wander off too far, they don't know what they're doing. So they just kind of stand there and they freeze. They don't know what to do. So the sheep owner has to come along, literally throw the sheep on the shoulders, and bring the sheep back home. When you're reading these three stories in Luke's Gospel, chapter 15, remember the work is always about rescuing, restoring, and returning. Some of y'all know exactly what this is about. Then the second story comes along. Remember, these are short stories. Lost coin. Or what woman, if she owns 10 silver coins and loses one of them, won't light a lamp and sweep the house, searching her home carefully until she finds it? When she finds it, she calls together her friends and neighbors, saying, "Celebrate with me because I've found my lost coin." Again, another really simple story, isn't it? The story is about rejoicing and celebrating over something that was lost and now it's found. And then Jesus launches into the third parable. Now, we've talked about this story several times here before. In fact, I was just telling someone earlier, if we're not talking about this story at least twice a year, we're doing something wrong here. This is a foundational story for this community. It's the story about the lost son. Y'all remember it? There was two sons. The younger son comes to the father. Says, "Dad, I want my share of the money, the inheritance money," which is really offensive, by the way, because it's another way of saying, "Dad, I wish you were dead so I could have the money." And the father says, "Here, take the money, it's yours." So the son takes the money, and the text tells us that he goes off to this distant land and he squanders the money on drugs and drinking and prostitutes and whatever else I'm imagining here. Actually, prostitutes is in the text, but we can imagine, we'll get there, I promise you, we can imagine what else. He squanders the money with scandalous living. Things get so bad, he went into slavery and started working with pigs, another profession that the religious leaders would have nothing to do with in the first century Greco-Roman world, the world of Jesus. So then we're told, we'll throw it on the screen. The son says, "I'll get up and go to my father and say to him, 'Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son. Take me on as one of your hired hands.' So he got up and went to his father. And I'm imagining the father is sitting in the living room that morning, sitting on the couch. And he looks out the window and he sees his son down the dirt road. Is that him? Man, is that him? He sees that it's him and he's not angry. He's not mad. Doesn't get off the couch and say, "I want to show him." No, he starts to weep. And he swings open the door. And he runs out to the end of the driveway. And he grabs his son. The text says he is filled with compassion, overcome with compassion, gives him a big bear hug. Then he starts like a crazy man, screaming out to all the neighbors, "Quick, someone get a ring. Yeah, the ring on my dresser, get a ring, put it on his finger. It's a sign of royalty. If you like it, then you got to put a ring on it. Someone get a robe, go get the finest robe, bring out the robe. Someone run up to the store and get the fattened calf, because if you really want to celebrate, you get the fattened calf, the finest of meats. My boy's home, we're going to celebrate." Why would they celebrate? We'll throw it on the screen. Because this son of mine was dead and has come back to life. Whose story is that? This son of mine is dead and has come back to life, or daughter. He was lost and is found, and they began to celebrate. Now, here's the thing. The story, it could stop right there, and it would be in perfect alignment with the first two parables. But this story has a little plot twist to it, doesn't it? Because, see, the older brother, he's off working in the fields that day. And the text tells us that he hears some commotion. He hears singing and dancing. So he walks home. He gets to the porch where one of the servants is that's probably hosting the party, putting things together. And the son says, what is happening here? Did I miss something? And the servant says, oh my goodness, you haven't heard. Your brother, the one that's been gone for months, the one no one's heard from or seen. He's home. He came home this morning. And your dad's throwing a big party for him. What? Here's how the brother responds. Then the older son was furious and didn't want to enter in, but his father came out and begged him. He answered his father, look, I've served you all these years, and I've never disobeyed your instruction. But when this son of yours returned after gobbling up your estate on prostitutes, see, I wasn't making that up, you slaughtered the fattened calf for him? Then his father said, don't miss this part, son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. In other words, you have been at the party the whole time, and you haven't realized it. It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, you can say word. In the churches, they say amen, but word works too. Now, you know what's interesting? Both sons, the younger son and the older son, both sons think the father is into keeping score. Just like the religious leaders, how much good could you do? And that's going to get given to you. How much bad are you going to do? And that's going to be the punishment. Both sons think he is into keeping score. If they wander too far off, if they create some distance, there's going to be some punishment. If they do good and obey all the rules, then there's going to be some great reward at the end. How does the God figure respond in the story? And if you're a bit fuzzy, the father in the story in this parable represents God. How does God respond? Oh, you thought all that stuff you did. You thought all the stuff that you did. You thought all the bad things that you did. You thought I was deducting points. You thought there was going to be some punishment waiting for you upon your return home. But my boy, you're home. Let's celebrate. Oh, I get it. You thought all the good stuff that you did. You thought all the following of the rules, being a good religious person, you thought that was going to earn you some reward. Man, I loved you then. I love you now. I cannot love you any more than I already possibly love you. Everything I have is yours, and you, my boy or my girl, have been with me the whole time. Everything I have is yours. By the way, what do these three stories have in common? They're all rejoicing over something that was lost being found, something that was lost being restored and returned, and something that was lost coming home to where it belonged the whole time. Dang. Do you see why we need these stories? Yeah, because see, some things can happen in your life, can't they? Things can happen in the world that you cannot make sense of, and it feels like you are lost, and it leaves you feeling zero sense of belonging, and for lots of different reasons, you have become distant from God. You've put distance there, or it just appeared, and some religious leaders are going to affirm your worst impulse, that of course these bad things are happening to you because you've drifted or you've done something wrong and God is no longer on your side. Of course these bad things are happening to our culture because of those people, whoever those people are, whoever the scapegoat is. God's punishing you. God's punishing us. Of course that's why it's happening. And can't you hear God saying along the journey, stop. Man, don't buy it. It's a bunch of BS. My work is always about something coming home to where it belonged the entire time. My brothers and sisters, you have belonged the whole time. And see, if you have experienced overwhelming pain or you have experienced doubt or some serious questions, it is not because God is against you. It is not because God is not for you. In fact, God is the one who says to you, you have belonged the whole time. All I have is yours. Rescuing, returning, and restoring things to their proper place. And do you see how this is the thing that gives energy to these stories? It keeps them moving forward. And by the way, what did the sheep do? Nothing. He stood there. Literally, he had to be thrown on some shoulders and carried home. How many of y'all know what that's like? What did the coin do? Nothing, because coins can't do anything. The coin was lost and then it was found. And what does the son do? Some of y'all are thinking, well, the son, he journeyed home. He does come home. You're right. He did do something, but only under the assumption that he would come home as a hired hand, as a slave. Do you see how it's the nothingness that drives the stories? And y'all know what nothingness is about, right? That nothingness is about grace. And y'all have heard me say it 1,000 times. Grace, it's a thing you can't earn. You can't ever get enough points to get it. You can't earn it. If you have to work for it, it's not grace, it's something else. And grace is always insistent on your belonging. And I get it. In times of questions and doubts or pain or tragedy, your impulse says, your impulse always sneaks up and says, man, I just want some answers. God, I mean, where were you? Or why did this thing happen? And listen, even if it was possible to get that answer for God, would it ever really be satisfactory? Would it ever be like, oh, that's why it happened. I'm good now. No. And remember, when Jesus was eating with the sinners or the outcasts, the ones who were most marginalized, the ones who were most kicked around, and when he was challenged by the religious leaders of the day, the religious authorities, Jesus did not launch into Theology 101 and try to fix their minds. Nah. He always told simple stories about being lost and then found, simple stories about coming home, simple stories about belonging, simple stories about the grace that's been there the entire time, because in your moments of doubt, grace will always be better than pat answers. And in all your doubt, all your questions, all your longings, all your suspicion, all your apprehension, grace meets you exactly in that place. And in my experience, grace whispers, you belong. And you belonged the whole time. So take just a moment, take 60 seconds and reflect on the doubt and grace in your life. All right, welcome back, everybody. So we have with us tonight, if you're new with us, by the way, I should tell you that we have a guest storyteller every single Saturday night. And tonight, I want you all to meet, because if you're not here Wednesday night, you need to meet him tonight. But I hope you all come Wednesday night. His name is Josh Geppelt. He's the vice president of programs of the Denver Rescue Mission. Been there for 16 years, right? So Josh is going to come and share with us some of his story around doubt. This is fascinating stuff. Josh is just a good dude. When we were meeting, we've met a few times over the last couple of years, but man, he just speaks a language that I think y'all are going to resonate with, and a language that that we need to keep on. It's a conversation we need to keep on having. So I want y'all to help me welcome Josh to the table. Yeah, I should have done that about 3 hours ago. All right, my boy Josh is here. My boy, dude. I'm sorry, I shouldn't introduce you that way.
I'll be your boy.
That just got out. All right, so I just want to, I want people to, during this doubt series, you know, we're not doing, you guys have probably picked up on it by now, we're not just sharing like recovery stories, we're talking about like actually personal stories, like more narrowed in, more honed in than just a broad perspective. So you said something really interesting when we were sitting on the couch the other day, that you've been in ministry for 16 years. Is that right? 16 years? Probably longer, but I know you've been at the Denver Rescue Mission 16 years.
Yeah, all in total about 22.
22 years. You also come to us, I said this in the email and then social media, you come to us as the loved one of an addict and as a spiritual refugee. In fact, I'll say more about this on Wednesday, but Josh was just gone a couple of weeks ago in Alaska doing your cousin's funeral who died of an overdose, right? So no stranger to this stuff. But it was interesting when you said all these years you've been in Christian ministry, for so long you were not given permission to doubt. Talk to us about that, because I think a lot of people can relate with that.
Yeah, I think it's easy to assume that people that are in ministry, be it pastors or people that run nonprofits, have all the answers, have it all figured out. And it's easy for others to think that, because it's easy that we're supposed to think that. And I think that usually early on, I think we all have that in us to a bit. And I think we all have our stories, if we've done the work for at least a couple years, of when all that comes crashing down. And so, you know, when I first started out, I was working in church ministry on the right side of the tracks, you know, white suburbia, in a place way far northeast Denver that I won't mention the name of. But it's a place where, you know, on the outside, everything makes sense. And then I started working at the Rescue Mission, and I was at the our place downtown that everyone knows of, with the big Jesus, you know, on the corner.
Jesus Saves.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Jesus Saves.
People call it that. Jesus Saves.
Yes, and other names that I won't mention.
Well.
But it didn't take long for me to realize that what I saw on that corner is not what I saw at the church, and the needs and the people that were in that building didn't belong in the church.
Yeah. Okay. So back up a minute though. So what was it? When you say white suburbia, things looked okay on the outside. Things look good on the outside. Why is that not a conducive setting for experiencing doubt?
Yeah, I think in our world today, we are conditioned to give people only the good parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, I'm old enough to have some, you know, I experienced life pre-Facebook, just barely.
What was that like?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, there was that whole MySpace or my whatever that was. That wasn't quite the same. But
I miss it, man.
but it's important. I mean, for all of us, just to sense the fact that we are conditioned to only give the clean parts of ourselves to others.
Yeah.
And I think that church has been about that for a long time.
Yep.
Because we all have that mask that we're conditioned to put on. Where I was raised in the South, I mean, we called it, you had to put on your Sunday best, and that wasn't just your clothes. I mean, that was your attitude.
Yeah.
You had to act a certain way to go to church, and I think that that has done a ton to turn people off from the church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's why we say here so often, and by often I mean every single week, we don't do shame. It's our tagline here, because we've been so scared of shame. I mean, it's what kept me from getting sober. I thought, man, they're gonna actually see me and know me, and they're gonna see that I don't hold it all together. They're gonna see what a mess I am. That was really scary. So to have a place, I hope we're creating a place here where you can come and be who you are. But back to the right side of the tracks. You said it was, I think in 2009, you described it as a faith crisis for you, because you encountered the God who intentionally situated himself among the poorest of the poor, among the marginalized, and how that kind of just blew things up for you. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I grew up in church. I grew up in a I have awesome parents. I went to Christian college. I went to grad school to be a pastor. I worked at a church. And so I had a very clear understanding of who I thought God was and what the rules were in order to follow God. And then I started working with the homeless, and those rules don't work in that context. And it took me about a year and a half in that context for it just to hit me, the fact that, I can't invite the people that I meet, on the street to the God that I grew up with, because those rules, those practices, those expectations weren't going to work. And so I had to figure out who is God for this population. And when I realized that I didn't know who that God was, I was done. I didn't know what to do at that point.
So what did you do? Was it was it acting like you held it together on the outside?
Oh no, I was at church and I completely lost it. And so, it took me a long time to try to even start to view God differently. I had to give myself clear permission that just because the rules I was taught didn't work for the population I was serving, that did not mean that the places that I grew up were wrong. That I needed to find a way to honor where I came from in order to be able to be where I was fully. And that was hard. It was hard for me to live in that tension.
Yeah.
Because, when I was a kid, it was good to have rules. It was good to have a very simplistic understanding. And I think that's not bad. And so I think for me, it took probably about 2.5 years to try to figure out what that tension was and to be able to honor that tension.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in a good church with good people. It's just that those rules didn't work anymore. And so I had to figure out what the new rules were for the people that I was working with.
Yeah, you're talking about something really interesting in our book discussion. So Brian McLaren, for those of you that haven't read it, Faith After Doubt, he talks about 4 stages of doubt. And we're going to get into those in the next 3 weeks of this series. But how easy it is to look at your past and to say it was all bad.
Yeah.
You throw it all away. So I love your language of honoring the things that were given to you.
Yeah.
Even if you move beyond those things,
Yeah.
there's still a way to honor them and love them for what they are and keep moving forward.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's hip right now to deconstruct. I mean,
Totally.
that's the pop culture thing to do. I mean, if you're in the church or you're post church or whatever, and not that it's bad to do that, but I think that we're honoring this idea that, as you just said, that where we came from was wrong and bad, as opposed to it that I needed that for a season and it was good for me, and that others will need that for their own lives and their own journeys. And there is a starting place, but we're not supposed to stay there. And so as we move beyond that, like we need a different story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because otherwise we get stuck in resentments.
correct.
And for people in doing some 12-step work, you know that we have this number one offender called resentments, and it's often deadly.
Yeah.
But we get stuck in those stages of resentment and anger, and I'm better than that, and how dare you? Why'd you give that to me as a child? So, Josh, what do you say to doubt now? When doubt creeps up, or when you're talking to people, when you're talking with your people on the streets, or experiencing homelessness, experiencing addiction, a mental illness, what when doubt comes up, what do you say to doubt?
I think for myself, when it's me in my own head, I have to realize that it's honest and it's real, that it's okay to have doubts, that there aren't easy answers for everything, and that there are huge questions that I'm not ever going to have the answer why to, and so to hold that tension for myself is where I find that hope. For others, I think it's harder. I mean, it's harder to sit with a person, on the curb, who has lost everything, who has no hope, and who has their own story with God, where they felt like they were forgotten, where they feel like He wasn't present. And it's hard to sit in those moments. But where I find hope is that, as you just shared in those stories, I mean, like, the person that I choose, as my higher power, that I call God,
Yep.
is constantly in pursuit of people, is constantly in pursuit of me. And so I may not recognize it. And so for me, it's helpful to have people on that journey with me so that when I don't see it, they see it for me. And so that's the role I attempt to play with, everyone that I interact with is, can I see God when they can't? And sometimes that's easy and sometimes that's hard.
Yeah, and I love what you said, man. You said that you encountered the God who was living among the people and sought out the people. I put it in my notes, sought out the people who the religious structures didn't work for.
Yeah.
And when I read the Gospels, that the Jesus I keep seeing in there is the one who was seeking out the people who the religious structures said no to.
Yeah.
So to be a good religious person doesn't tell us much.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell us much about one's relationship with God.
Sure.
All right, man. Anything you want to say to get us geared up for Wednesday?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you...
Don't act surprised
yeah,
by it, man.
no,
You're supposed to be...
it's just next week. Yeah.
That's in like 3 days.
Yeah,
man.
if you haven't been paying attention, if you've been asleep for the last couple of years, we do have an opioid, huge crisis in our country.
And I know you see a lot of it just by your...
Yes, it is highly accessible, and it does not discriminate. It is not a street drug. It is not a white suburban housewife drug. It's everything in between. And so it is incessant, and it's really accessible. And I think we see the impact of it all over the place.
Yeah, which is why our mission here is to break the silence of addiction and create that space. So, man, I'm so grateful to have you as a friend in my life. I'm so grateful to get to know you more. I'm grateful you're part of this community or willing to be part of this community. And thank you for coming to share some of your story tonight.
Happy to.
Josh Geppelt, ladies and gentlemen. And will you stick around tonight? Cool. He's going to stick around. If you have questions, let him know. Thank you, brother. I was going to give you a hug, but you walked away so quickly, Josh. That's all right. It made me look silly. Shaming, rejection, I'm used to it. All right. Yeah. I want y'all to keep taking your pulse on doubt as we move through this series. And really, when the shame comes up with doubt, keep pushing it away. Keep discovering a new kind of God that's going to welcome your questions and your doubts and say, this is part of the journey. This is part of life. And don't ever let religious leaders, don't let them get away with the pat answers. Don't let them get away with easy answers to your great questions, great longings. And as a seminary professor told me, thank you, Josh, for hitting on this, don't ever let people come along and deconstruct your faith without helping you reconstruct something meaningful. Man, that's important work. We talked about that on Wednesday night, didn't we? Chris, I'm glad for all your words and amens tonight, man. Making me feel at home. All right, y'all, the way we close things down here in this community is with the heartaches. Just like we do celebrations, we close with heartaches, the burdens that you're carrying, the hard things that you're carrying, the sadness or whatever it is, the heartaches that you're carrying. We share those things in this community. We believe that God always hears the cries of the people, so there is nothing too big or too small. Just like we do with celebrations, you got 3 minutes. If you're online, if you're joining us on YouTube or the website or Facebook, go ahead and put it in the comments. And we want to carry those burdens with you. We have a prayer team here on site that prays for you throughout the week and helps you carry these burdens, because I say it every week, y'all suck at carrying these things alone. You're not equipped for it. You're not competent at it. You're not good at it. So don't try anymore. Take 3 minutes and give us your heartaches, and we will come right back. Yeah. Hey, I'm glad you're here, and it's great to connect with you, not on Facebook, but in person. All right. Welcome to you guys. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for lifting that up. Prayers for you. Prayers for all the single mamas. All the single mamas. All the single. Okay. Come on now. You were thinking it too. Your song was there too. All right, dude. Yeah, let's scoot this way. All right, you start. If we have any. There it is. You're on now.
Maybell, pray for me and lift my spirits to gain strength as I move ahead. It's hard and heavy, but knowing that there are positive souls out there to walk this journey alongside is priceless. lifting you up, and we will definitely walk with you in any way, shape, and form.
That's right. You don't have to walk alone. Hey, I'm glad you're on tonight. I think you're, Maybell, I think you're newer with us. Glad you're part of this community. I know we've had a
Welcome.
few new people online,
Yeah,
and so
a lot.
just it's good to be
A
with
few
our
new
online
faces
people.
in here, too.
Yeah. From Canada. Welcome, all the way from Canada. All right. Christy says, prayers for my friend. She lost her stepmom this week because of COVID, and now her mom is on the ventilator in the ICU, and the doctors are telling her to pray for the best but prepare for the worst. May God's peace be with her. Christy, thank you for lifting them up. We had someone else in this room lifting up a loved one who's also on a ventilator. So prayers for all those struggling in the hospital right now. Thank you for lifting them up, Christy. Prayers for them.
Love you so much, Christy.
Cut it off there. Oh, we had a quiet community tonight.
Oh, can
Not
I
in person, but
Can I say one thing?
yeah, do it,
So
man.
earlier you said, I hope this community is creating a safe space. And if you know me, I wear my heart on my sleeve. And it was because this place created a safe place for me to share traumas, the hurts, and the
Yeah.
things. And I've always gotten grace because of that here. Someone always loved me. And now my story is my strength because there's grace in that. And I get to share and help that here. And this place did that. So you and Tammy have created a place for people to
all.
grow. So just so you know that.
Hey, I love you, brother. Thanks for sharing that. Want one more? Let's do one more.
Oh, Noel. Love you, Noel. Prayers for my family, navigating parents' divorce. Definitely lifting you up and definitely empathetic to that. We love you so
Yeah.
much, Noel.
Thanks for sharing that with us, Noel.
Love you guys. Thanks for letting me be a part of it.
We were almost clapped for that.
Do we?
I don't know, man. I love you, brother. Glad you're here.
You don't clap for divorce.
Sometimes we have to laugh through the hard stuff. Is it true? I mean, sometimes laughter is the best medicine, and we do that in this community. All right, y'all. Thank you for being part of this community tonight, for sharing your vulnerabilities, for doing life together. And listen, if you have been impacted by this community in some way that's touched you or a loved one, a family member, we do always accept and invite your generous giving. The wagon has moved. You might have noticed that the wagon has moved. It's now at the front because we've got this thing here at the front now, but it's by the front door, and there's giving boxes all over, and truly your generous giving makes a big difference in this community. It keeps the mission thriving forward of breaking the silence of addiction and creating space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. You can also check it out online, freespiritualcommunity.com, and give there, or the free Spiritual Community app if you haven't downloaded that yet. You can give that way. And really, we are so grateful for those of you that give in this community, and realize for many of you, it is a spiritual practice that you have given yourself to. So thank you for being a part of that. Really, truly, thank you. All right, y'all. How we really close things down isn't just with heartaches, but we actually close with prayer. So I want to invite you, as we do every week, to just simply take a deep breath. Yeah, remember who you're inviting into your breathing. And just open your hands. It's a sign of openness. Open to what God is doing in you and through you and all around you. And we will go out with let's do the Lord's Prayer. If you don't know the Lord's Prayer, it is on the screen for you. The Lord's Prayer goes like this. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. My free brothers and sisters, this week, may you go with all kinds of grace and peace, because it is God who says to you, all I have is yours, and you have belonged the entire time. Let that give you much grace and peace, and we'll see you next time.
People ask me what my secret is, I just smile and say, follow me. I'm sending out to the world my secret.